For nearly 2 decades, one woman lived completely alone on a remote, windswept island in the Pacific Ocean. No tools, no community, no certainty that another human being would ever return. Left behind in 1835 on San Nicolas Island, she endured relentless storms, scarce fresh water, and the crushing quiet of total isolation. As years slipped by and footprints vanished in the sand, she unknowingly became the last living member of her people. This is not a story of dramatic rescue or daring escape. It is a true account of endurance, memory, and what it takes to remain human when the world forgets you exist. After she was finally found, the world called her Juana Maria, a name assigned by those who rescued her, shaped by foreign customs and language. Her real name, spoken in the tongue of her ancestors, was never written down. It disappeared along with the Nicoleno tribe, erased quietly through violence, disease, and forced relocation. When she was left on the island, she was not just a lone survivor. She became the final living representative of an entire culture. She likely did not know that she was the last of her people. What she knew with painful clarity was that she was alone. In 1835, a Spanish schooner arrived to remove the remaining Nicoleno survivors to the mainland. The process was chaotic. A storm rolled in. People rushed aboard with whatever they could carry. Voices shouted, panic spread. And when the ship finally pulled away from shore, one person was left behind. Whether she was forgotten, jumped back searching for someone, or was simply missed will never be known. But as the vessel vanished beyond the horizon, she stood on the beach with nothing but the island and the years ahead. San Nicolas Island sits roughly 61 miles off the coast of Southern California. Long and narrow, shaped by wind and water rather than human design, it faces constant ocean gales. The climate is cool and semi-arid, wrapped in frequent fog with little fresh water and almost no natural shelter. Low vegetation clings to the ground, sculpted by salt and wind, while steep cliffs plunge into restless seas. Survival there has never been easy. Despite its harshness, the waters surrounding the island are full of life. Thick kelp forests sway beneath the surface, home to fish, shellfish, seabirds, and marine mammals. Seals rest along the beaches. Abalone cling tightly to tidal rocks. The island offers abundance, but only to those who understand its rhythms, seasons, and dangers. Long before Europeans arrived, the Nicoleno people had lived on San Nicolas Island for thousands of years. Their survival depended on deep knowledge passed down through generations. They fished the kelp beds, harvested shellfish, hunted seals, and built sturdy ocean vessels capable of traveling across open water. Their isolation once protected them, but that protection would not last. In the early 1800s, Russian fur traders arrived, bringing Aleut hunters in search of valuable sea otter pelts. With them came violence, exploitation, and unfamiliar diseases. Within just a few decades, the Nicoleno population collapsed. The balance that had sustained them for centuries was shattered. By the 1830s, only a handful remained, weakened, vulnerable, and dependent on outside forces that did not protect them. Spanish Franciscan missionaries decided to relocate the remaining Nicoleno people to the mainland, claiming it was for their safety and conversion. But the execution was careless. One rushed trip, one poorly managed evacuation. And in the confusion, one woman was left behind to face the island alone. Some accounts suggest she may not have been entirely alone at first. There are stories of a young son who stayed with her briefly before drowning while trying to cross rough waters in a small canoe. If true, the loss would have been devastating, severing her final human connection. After that, there would be no one to speak her language, share her labor, or remember her past. The silence would be complete. Surviving required far more than luck. It demanded skill passed down since childhood. Using materials gathered from the shore, she built shelters that protected her from the wind and cold. One structure was made from the rib bones of a massive whale, likely washed ashore years earlier. Driftwood, grasses, and packed earth filled the spaces. Other shelters were lighter and movable, designed for different seasons. Every placement considered wind direction, warmth, and access to food. She made clothing from bird feathers and sealskins, stitched together using sinew. Without metal needles, sewing was slow and precise. Stone tools had to be constantly reshaped. Bone needles snapped and wore down. Everything required patience and constant repair. Archaeological evidence later showed how carefully crafted her tools were. These were not desperate attempts. They were intelligent, refined solutions developed over time. Her food came from both ocean and shore. She gathered shellfish, caught fish, hunted birds, and took seals when possible. Meat was dried in the wind for preservation. She carefully timed her harvesting with tides and seasons. Fresh water, scarce on the island, was collected from rain pooled in rock basins or stored in handmade containers. Every drop mattered. Nothing was wasted. The physical labor was exhausting, but the mental strain may have been even harder. Total isolation can break the human mind. Without conversation, shared language, or social connection, many people fall into despair or madness. But she endured. Evidence suggests she sang songs from her culture to herself, preserving memory through sound. She spoke aloud, possibly to animals, spirits, or simply to keep her voice alive. She may have marked time with carved sticks or symbols, small ways to create order in a world that no longer acknowledged her. Seasons repeated again and again. Storms tore across the island. Shelters were rebuilt. Tools improved. No rescue came, no ship stopped. On the mainland, the Nicoleno people who had been relocated died within a few years from disease. Without knowing it, she became the final living archive of an entire civilization's language, knowledge, and traditions. In 1853, nearly 18 years after she was abandoned, sea otter hunter Captain George Nidever heard rumors of signs of life on San Nicolas Island. Curious, he organized an expedition. His crew found shelters, tools, and food remains, but no person at first. Only on their final night did they see her watching them from a distance, silent and cautious. When she approached, she carried roasted wild onions as an offering. It was a simple gesture that needed no translation. No one spoke her language and she spoke none of theirs. Yet understanding passed between them. One crew member later remembered her singing a song that seemed to express peace and readiness. After nearly 2 decades alone, she chose to leave the island. She was taken to Santa Barbara, into a world louder and more crowded than anything she had known in years. She lived with Nidever's family. People came to see her, driven by curiosity and sympathy. She examined horses, tools, clothing, buildings, and objects completely foreign to her experience. By most accounts, she showed calm curiosity rather than fear or bitterness. Her body, however, struggled. Accustomed to a limited diet of protein and natural foods, her system could not handle the sudden abundance. New foods, unfamiliar bacteria, and diseases overwhelmed her immune system. Dysentery is believed to be the cause of death. Just 7 weeks after her rescue, she died. Before her death, a Franciscan priest baptized her and officially recorded the name Juana Maria. It was the first and last time her identity entered written history. When she passed away in October 1853, she was buried in an unmarked grave at the Santa Barbara Mission Cemetery, surrounded by strangers. A brief note in the burial record described her only as the native woman brought from San Nicolas Island. For decades, no marker acknowledged her life. It wasn't until the early 20th century that a small memorial plaque was placed there, a quiet attempt to recognize someone history had nearly erased. Many of the tools and belongings recovered from the island were once kept in museums, including water containers, clothing, and bone needles she crafted by hand. Most were destroyed during the 1906 San Francisco earthquake and the fires that followed. One remarkable dress made entirely of cormorant feathers was reportedly sent overseas for preservation, then disappeared from records forever. Years later, her life inspired the novel Island of the Blue Dolphins, which introduced a fictionalized version of her survival to millions of readers. Archaeologists later confirmed much of her story through remains found on the island. Whalebone shelters, stone tools, and food evidence proving she had lived there not as a legend, but as a real person solving real problems every day. Her story does not offer easy comfort. It is not a heroic fantasy. It does not turn tragedy into triumph. It forces us to confront abandonment, colonial violence, and how easily entire cultures can vanish. She did not choose isolation. It was forced upon her, yet she lived, day after day, year after year. Not because the world was kind, but because she refused to disappear simply because the world stopped looking. Her survival stands as one of the most powerful examples of human resilience ever recorded. If stories of strength, endurance, and forgotten history move you, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us for more true stories that reveal the extraordinary limits of the human spirit. Tell us which of these moments you found the most dangerous.